Welcome to the show, Kyle and Cam from Expanded Perspectives. You guys have been podcasting since Bitcoin was 50 cents, and you grew up in Texas, good friends. You've been friends since a young age. You live a couple hundred yards from each other. You've been podcasting for almost 10 years. And Luke and I have been in it for like 10 months.
On this show. We have a little more background in that.
That's true. We had other podcasts, but this is still in infancy, but we're growing, we're having fun. But thanks for coming on, Blurry Creatures. We talk a lot about, giants, ancient history, alt history, Bigfoot, cryptids. That's kind of where we're at. Aliens and UFOs a little bit. My story is I got into Bigfoot remodeling houses. And I moved to Nashville in 2012, started binging Bigfoot podcasts. I would listen to about 10 to 12 hours a day while drywalling and painting and all that stuff. I couldn't keep my brain... I had to keep my brain going, or I couldn't work. And after a while, people just thought I was nuts. Like, dude, they started calling me the Bigfoot guy, and watched all the documentaries, which 90% of them are terrible. But you guys know the drill. But it's good to have you guys on the show, and appreciate you guys coming on. And yeah, you were just launching in. We did a little B-roll, pre-roll before we started. You guys were getting into the ancient giants.
Yeah.
And that's what we love to talk about on our show.
First of all, thanks for having us. We're glad to be here. You may have only been doing this show for 10 months, but your show is already awesome. I really enjoyed the episodes I've listened to so far. So I'm glad you decided to do it. I know exactly what you were talking about. I've been down those roads. I was the same way back in 2012 or before that. When you're around, like you were saying, you were modeling houses. I wasn't doing that, but when you listen to normal radio, it's like the same 10 songs just over and over and over. And if you switch over to like classic rock, there's nothing wrong with it. It's good, but I've been listening to those songs for 20 years. Like, I need something new. And when you go to like sports talk, I mean, it's just people complaining about the football team and the baseball team. It's just after a while, you're like, I don't care, I need something else. So I found podcast. This guy introduced it to me. He's like you said, really close friends. And I was the same way. I started going down these paths where I was binge listening to these podcasts talking about like Bigfoot sightings and things like that. And the thing I enjoyed it is the most is probably the same thing you did is I liked the stories. It didn't matter if it was an old woman in Florida or it was a mountain climber up in Washington State. I enjoyed the story. And some of the stories were kind of fantastical. Some of them were not very exciting at all. Like we just heard some stuff or something smelled like hot trash, and I couldn't sleep that night. So I was driving down the road and something ran in front of me. To other ones where like a guy sees they're peeking through people's windows. They say they have a kinship with them. We have a gifting tree. I like to leave them little trinkets or apples and they're my friends. And because you're in your mind, you're like, well, why don't you take some pictures if you're friends with them? But they always have the same excuse. Like, well, I don't want anybody to try to hurt them. There's always some caveat, but the stories drew me in, and that's what started opening my eyes to other stories. Like you said, UFOs, alien abduction, time slips, alternative history, Middle Earth or Inner Earth, the conspiracies like the lunar landing, and it just the list goes on. And the next thing you know, people were starting to think that I was crazy. And
now you've proven them right.
I've proven them all right. I would listen to episodes and I would tell him to download like the same episode. And I was like, call me when you're done. Let's discuss. Like, what do you think? And he'd be like, oh, story number 3. I don't believe that guy, but man, that woman, I really believe that. And it sounds right. And the way she was giving that description, I've been down there. That makes sense, And then after a while we decided, hey man, let's try to do it ourselves. And here we are. It's a hobby that turned into like a part-time job, but we like doing it. But when we were talking before the show, we started to get into some history about the giants that once roamed North America. Now they are rumored to have been in other places of the world too, but that has always been one of my favorite subjects because I mean, my mind was completely blown when I first read. And I don't even remember where I read it, but I was like, wait a minute. There were giants here, like real giants. And why don't you think I should have been taught that in school? Like, I mean, we were taught about like Paul Bunyan and stuff like that, but like there was real giants. And then you start looking into it and you realize that there was not just a few, but thousands of cases that were reported to newspapers. Now, I know some of the newspapers probably inflated the story to sell newspapers. Makes sense, but they can't all be made up. And how many farmers, while plowing their fields or whatever, found bones and just was like, I don't care. Like, because they looked down on the Native Americans as inferior. So, they didn't want to mess up their farm.
Yeah. Or get shut down or.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially before the Repatriation Act.
Yeah, absolutely.
They would just cast it aside.
So how many stories are there that were never reported?
Just like how many Bigfoot counters are never reported, Same thing. I bet you. Yeah, it's probably 2 or 3%.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I would say for every report that is sent in, there's probably 50 to 100 that haven't been. And shows like Finding Bigfoot, it's becoming more mainstream. Jack Link's beef jerky now has Sasquatch in it. It's becoming so. I feel like people are more comfortable coming forward with.
I mean, Nate's drinking cider beer.
Yeah, right.
With a
what was the name of it?
Yeah, local legend.
Sounds about right.
Shilling hard cider. It's disappearing.
It's disappearing.
It's like a Bigfoot. And it just kind of disappears as you go
It's
back.
got that BC vibe though, dude. He's got sunglasses and a boombox. I feel like the Blurry Creatures. It could be our mascot. We maybe have to steal that artwork.
It is now.
Well, the question is are the Bigfoot and the giants related? I mean, do they have?
That is a theory.
Are they similar? Because there's 700 mounds in North America. Documented. There's probably more, but if there's 700 mounds, those things are massive.
Yeah.
You got to think it probably took 500 giants to build one of these things. Some of these are 2 stories tall. So you got to think they're all over the place. So these beings are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and how lucky do you have to get to hit bones in the soil? I mean, they could, you know what I mean? Like the chances of digging up these bones and the fact that there are the thousands of reports. I mean, that means there must have been a huge population of giants in North America.
At least at one time, yeah.
Right, long ago. And
South America, I think. We talk a lot about all the stuff that happens, all of the megaliths down in South America. We had a few guests on talking about these structures that predate the Incas and predate the Aztecs, and they just kind of built onto them, and their construction is pretty crappy compared to what was built before.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that down in Patagonia there was reports of early explorers meeting giants and tribes of giants. There's a primitive culture. The Olmecs were around before the Mayans and the Incas, and there's the stories of the Viracocha, where the guys would arrive and they would teach the people about agriculture. They would teach them about mathematics, astronomical events. I mean, and that's the thing, is not just are there mounds in North America, but a lot of stone structures and stone walls that meet up with summer solstices and equinoxes and stuff. So they had an understanding of cosmology. They weren't just randomly built. So that means that they were under high intelligence as well. And what's cool is in some of the burials, they'll find a giant, but he might have 2 or 3 like normal height women, like his wives were normal. So you got to imagine if there were only a few left, I imagine that those would be like the chiefs of their tribe because they would be huge. And I mean, I could only imagine they found them with axes, swords, crowns, copper, made of copper. They think that a lot of the copper was mined up there in Michigan.
Yeah, all those ancient copper mines, they can't explain those either, right? Because the Native Americans weren't too interested in any of that. Like,
the Phoenicians,
some jewelry,
right? There was no metallurgy.
Yeah, the Phoenicians.
The Phoenicians were shipping it. Yeah,
they were
subcontractors for the Egyptians.
I love it.
Yeah, they were able to test some of the copper found in Phoenician boat wrecks all the way over in the Red Sea and stuff, and knew that it came from the mines in Michigan.
What do you think they're doing with the copper? What's the obsession with metals, you think?
I think it was bronze. I think they found copper extremely malleable like we do. And they were probably, as far as Egyptian wise, was probably also using it for its antibacterial properties. They probably realized at one point they could make vessels out and you didn't have to clean them as much. things could happen. You could do things better, but I also think it had to do a lot with jewelry in the Bronze Age, as it probably started kind of building its way towards that. But those copper mines have been up there for thousands of years.
Yeah, over 14,000.
What were they talking about with the Bronze Age in Europe? Is they said that the copper that it would need to keep the Bronze Age grinding in Europe, there wasn't enough in Europe. So they knew the copper had to come from someplace else. So it does seem like this. There's a lot of history to get into that it does seem like has been suppressed over the several hundred years now of things that actually went on in North America. Not just the giants, but piles of it that we have not been told everything.
I can't even get half of my academic. I mean, Luke and I went off to school, and half of my college friends who went on to higher education. I mean, we've gotten in some conversations, man. You can't even convince them there's evidence.
I know, right?
It's all a hoax. It's all made up. It's all misidentified.
Yeah.
I'm like, boy, I sure wished I was that confident about things that I had seen.
I'm like, you can drive to Michigan and see the mines.
Yeah.
You can go there.
So,
or the mounds.
I mean, you guys have been at this for a while. Why? I gotta ask you, like in a big broad brush, overarching. Why do you think this stuff is suppressed? Why do you think there is an effort really to dismiss anything that seems to contradict or change the narrative? I mean, I'm just curious in your opinions on this, because you guys have been in this game a lot longer than we have.
I think it has to do with mainly the era upon which it was all being found. If we had just moved here with the mindset that we have now, and it's hard to say, because it would never be, because now it would be a different war with the Native American. Everything would be different if it is. But I believe that it was a mindset with the people that were taking the lands away as the progress was happening, that they wanted to show that it was almost their right to have this land, almost their right to take it away from those that lived here and drive those out in front of them. And I believe that in order to make that right, you had to kind of hide some things. You couldn't go into it going, man, there is cultures here that we didn't even know existed. Like, there are things here that we didn't even know could possibly have been a thing. And now we're here. And we always talk about like the Kensington Rune Stone. You start looking at all of the stones involved that people had found that had ancient carvings in it that they said was hoaxed. Turns out that writing wasn't even known to be true to like the 60s, because you're like, there's no way it could have been hoaxed. Like, there's absolutely no way, and you get into it. I think a lot of it was done by the people in power at the time because they thought they were doing the right thing. They thought that they could convince everybody that the manifest destiny part was truly their destiny. And that's the reason it was suppressed. I don't know that it was nefarious. I don't think they thought down the line. I don't think the people suppressing history at the time thought, you know what, this will be better for everybody 200 years from now. I just think that they thought this will be better for us now. We have been told stories of people on job sites, recent job sites within the last 15, 20 years, of them doing excavation work on large commercial scales and unearthing alleged dinosaur bones, only to have the superintendents crush them with large equipment and push them back into the piles and say, keep digging and keep working. Because if they see that, they're going to shut the whole site down for no telling how long to go through all this. And we don't have that time. So you think about money and power makes people do crazy things. And I think it was the same thing. It was that destiny was based on money and power. And I think they just tried to anything they couldn't easily explain. The giants, literally anything that didn't fit the narrative of the people at the time. They were like, no.
So what about now, though? So if we were to say, because now we know the evidence is few and far between, but if the suppression's happening now, and we're past sort of the manifest destiny and the eminent domain and all these different things that would have been.
Why does it continue?
Yeah, that's my question.
I think it continues because of the pressure put on the
professors.
I think, and just like he's talking about with the people that you went to school with, won't listen to a thing you want to talk about. Just basically tell you you're crazy. They drank the Kool-Aid. When you close that part of your mind off and you're not willing to do your own research and you take it as so-and-so told me, and this person must have done their research. When in reality, as you find out, much as when we got older, everybody listening wanted to say, you know what, when I'm a grown up, I'm going to live my life like this. Well, I'll tell you now, boys and girls, I'm a grown up and I still don't know how I want to live my life. I'm going to tell you that straight up. If anybody tells you they got it figured out, they're liars. That's what it is. None of us know anything until we die. We just kind of adapt as we go through. I think it's that. It's way easier. I'll ask both of you, if there's something you want to really study and you're trying to do, whether it's a recipe, whether you're working on your car at home, whatever you're doing, and you go on YouTube, you always look for the dude that's got the coolest video and the most views. Obviously, that person knows what they're talking about. And then you do it exactly the way that person showed it. Whenever there's somebody out there with views of 100 and have 3 subscribers, may actually have a better way of doing it. Why didn't you listen to them? Is because that wasn't what the narrative that you took with it. You didn't want to go against the status quo. You went with what everybody else went. You buy things that have the most reviews. Whether the reviews are real or not, we don't know. And I think that's what's wrong now. Is it initially starts with the education system. The education system has to be willing to, instead of train you to be a laborer, train you to think. But instead, of course, this is the whole big twist. America is a business, and it's got to train its employees. And so that's the way it does it. It wipes out things. You don't need to get sidetracked by that. Watch this. See who wins the game Sunday. Check out who's singing underneath that mask Tuesday. Look over here. Now we got to make sure. And all they do is it's just a shell game to take you off of what you should be looking at. Let's look at our history. Let's look at what's going on around us.
Bread and circuses, right? Yeah.
And I think,
and it's too easy. And just like we talked about with the Bigfoot stuff, and they're not reporting. You don't want to go against history. You don't want to say there were giants because, well, now they're going to single you out. There's that crazy. We can't invite Kyle back. Kyle thinks that there was giants here.
Well, and if the public learns that Bigfoot is real and is in the mountains, like you were saying, up in Oregon, then they're going to shut down lumber production because
logging stops.
There's an endangered species there,
We have to study.
I'm sure the guys that own those big logging corporations is like, anytime somebody says they see something, they're like, squash that story. They don't want it out.
Yeah, I've heard the Michigan guys, loggers, had to sign cease and desists. They couldn't. They had to sign. If I see anything in the woods, like, I'm not going to say anything.
It makes sense.
And like paperwork.
And like what Cam was saying with, the reason that people don't believe in a lot of this stuff is, I think, like, if you're a professor and you have a doctorate in something and your specialty is Egyptology and you spent your whole life and you've written 7 books, like, you're just closed-minded, because in order to consider some newfound information, it's like they just don't want to, because they're afraid that what they've been spouting or writing or teaching for all their career is untrue. So they're very steadfast. I mean, when you want to talk about pushback, anybody with like a couple letters after their name, they're the ones that's going to push back the hardest when any kind of new information comes to light. Like when Göbekli Tepe was first found. I mean, I remember there was a lot of people, a lot of archaeologists saying there's no way it's that old. And now they have to admit that site is 20,000 years old, if not older.
Surprise.
Right.
Surprise.
But they don't want
Explain
to.
that.
They don't want to. And I think it's because of that. I think the egos get involved. I think, like you were talking about your friends at a dinner party, they have credentials, they went to school, and they just don't want to believe that a guy who remodels houses and listens to endless stories of Bigfoot might know something more about ancient history than they do.
Yeah, it's definitely.
You got to be open-minded.
I think back to one thing, and we had the pleasure to get to speak with John Anthony West, and we spoke to him on the show, and then we got to speak to him several times off air. And for those of you that aren't familiar with who John Anthony West is, how dare you, first of all. But second of all, if you're into anything Egypt, that's the man you need to start reading some of the things he has, looking at stuff. And then he is the man responsible for going and get Dr. Robert Schoch and proving that the water erosion on the Sphinx that it was there, that's what it was. And I always think back to that, because he had told us that the first time he went down there, like in the 50s, and went to seeing all this, he knew something was up. Started studying all this. When he finally went and got Robert, a tenured professor at Boston, was it Boston University, isn't it? I believe it is.
Yes.
And got him talked into coming down there, and they did the study and they checked it all out. And Robert's like, that's exactly what this is. When they went back to the geological convention, he said there's like 250 of the world's top geologists there. And they had their display set up. And they had the photographs of it, but they had it barred out with other pieces of paper where all it showed, where you couldn't know where it was. It just showed the erosion. And they had every one of them come by. And what do you think this is? I mean, water erosion, wind erosion, sand erosion. What is causing this? People would write stuff down. When they got up on stage to present it, had it all out there and tore that stuff off, all the ones that had signed that's water erosion laughed, was like, yeah, that's not real water. But you just said it was. Well, no, now I'm taking it back. It can't be on that. Well, then you find out later with the ice core samples that they have found out that truly that was a lush rainforest 9,000 years ago.
And it's printed in like 2 sentences in the back of the newspaper.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Why is that not bigger news?
Right, because the Sphinx is far older than when they claim that it was created. Right.
Yeah. Why is that not huge news still today?
It makes me think of like some of my text messages with some of my group of my friends. There's like people in your phone, if like news happens, like someone said, like yesterday, I'll just be vulnerable here. Someone said, well, they're printing another 2.2 trillion. They're trying to destroy the currency on purpose. And I just text back, LOL. Of course they're trying to destroy the currency. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to ruin the economy. And that's what like half my friends believe. If I texted that to some other of my friends, they'd be like, are you crazy? Are you like, oh, you know what I mean? They can't even, it would take them 5 years just to get to that point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think a lot of it this way. It's almost like cardio. It's like a cardio workout. You can go work out with dudes that can go way harder than you can go because you're not to their cardio fit level. Or lifting, doesn't matter. Some people lift more than others. In order to get to there, you have to spend more time there doing it. And in order to get some of the knowledge that we're talking about, you can't read what they shovel in front of you. You kind of have to get out and do your own work. And I'm sure we all know people right now that haven't read a book since they left high school. The minute they were done, they're like, I'm done. I read like 2 books a week. Still, you just start going crazy because you can't stop. And when y'all started this podcast now, welcome to the churn, because that's the way it's going to be. You're going to think, I'm going to lay down that night. I'm not going to think about it. And 30 minutes in, I'm almost asleep. Something's going to pop into your head. Just go ahead and get up and go check it out, because you're not going to sleep right all night if you don't. But that's what it is. Right. Is it's like people, like you pointed out, if you was to say that to your friends, they would go crazy. But now your friends are saying it to you. It's like you had to wait. You ran a little ways around the track. You're 2 laps in. Now you're waiting. You're like, well, they'll be here in a minute. And then they're going to slowly catch back up again.
Dude, I love the cardio reference because, dude, I hate cardio. And I'm just like, go ahead, run it. Go ahead, run. Good for you.
That's why you train to fight, so you don't have to run.
Right?
And then you end up running all the time anyway. So,
no, I think I'll have an interesting point, though. Like, if you are that PhD professor, I mean, how disappointing to get to the end of that and then realize that you sit on a throne of lies.
Yeah, it's like going clear in what's the Scientology. Yeah, it's like going clear. Yeah. You finally get to the top and you realize it's
a sham.
Yeah.
Right. The whole thing is,
and a lot of those guys aren't that way. Like, I mean, let's not broad brush the whole education system. A lot of those guys are, and that's why it's starting to change and things are more being said. But yeah, I can't imagine. But by the time you vested that much time, you would be Zowie Hawass. Not only do you disagree, but you were staunchly against everything. We're not going to let you in to study it. If this is what you're going to do with the privileges we give you, then we're not going to let, unless you play on our team. And that's kind of 100%. The way they've been.
Dude, it's Twitter. It's social media. Yeah. It's like, unless you have the same opinion,
then you can't come in here and talk.
In the echo chamber, then we're just going to not let you talk.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, the weird thing is like people know the information because you always hear those stories of like Steve Jobs didn't give his kids iPads.
Yeah.
And the top medical doctor didn't vaccinate his kids or something like that. You always hear those stories of the people who do know the information. They're not publicly promoting that they know the information, but if you dig a little bit, you find out they don't even believe their own BS that's pumped into the system.
And I think that point right there is what we were talking about at the very beginning of why did they suppress history back then? Is I think they knew. It just didn't get them paid.
I think how much easier it would be to suppress the information back then compared to now.
Right. You didn't have this information at your fingertips, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you got to send it by Pony Express.
It's
getting there slow.
Somebody had to walk and hand it to somebody else.
Were probably illiterate, couldn't even read or write. So you'd be just like, oh no, that's
And to be honest, why would they care? Those people are struggling to survive. They're trying to get food. They're trying to get them. You're talking about barely after the age where people were even getting electricity into their home. Food wasn't even safe to eat till later in the 20s. I mean, seriously, the things that they put in it were not safe to eat. So at the time, it was ideal to suppress any kind of information. And I think that goes hand in hand with the giants. Because how would it, we all know big people. I have a cousin that's 6'7", 318 pounds. Dude, I'm 5'8". You ought to see me next to him. I think he eats that much. And that's a big dude. Big dude. But then there's dudes like you see 7 foot taller. It's like, if you don't understand what we're talking about when you say giants that are 12 foot, go to a basketball game. It don't even have to be like NBA. Just go to a local college and look at the size of those men. Now imagine those men with 6 more foot on them, 5 more foot on them, and roughly 200 more pounds.
It's wild.
Like, you wouldn't know what to do when you saw something
Carrying
like
an
that.
axe.
Carrying an axe. Yeah, you better. Yeah, I picture like a big Dungeons and Dragons dude with a giant beard, stuff braided in it, like human skulls, and walking. Yeah, that's what I picture.
Well, here's the interesting thing. So Luke and I kind of grew up in the church, and the Bible talks a lot about this stuff. And I never heard about this growing up in the church. So it's really weird, because it's like the giants is a huge narrative of the Old Testament. Yeah. And I'm not till I'm 38 years old that I finally hear about this. And I'm like, okay, all these preachers who said they read their Bible and they knew scripture, why'd you skip over these verses? I thought you knew your Bible. You're supposed to talk about this stuff. And
I've been in here every Wednesday.
Yeah, I know, right? Everyone would be showing up to church in high school.
Bible study be sold out, right?
Exactly. So, you see it in the church all the time. I would say 99% of church services, most churches, I'm throwing a number out there, making this up basically, but it feels like, I was a part of a lot of that stuff growing up. Campus Crusade, I went to youth group, went to summer camps. I was all in that realm. Never heard about the giants. And it's the same thing with academia. It's like seminaries don't talk about that stuff. I'm like, it only helps make the Bible valid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why would you not want to bring this into the story? What do you think about that stuff? Like, it seems like you have this closed-minded stuff in academia, and also the church won't talk about it. I don't know, something about the giants. It almost feels like to me like there's some nefarious higher being, whether it's Satan himself, who's like, we're going to keep this under wraps. No one's going to know about this. It almost feels like that to me sometimes. Like, that might be an easy explanation, but it's like, I don't understand how it's just, even the church skips over it.
A means to an end.
I know exactly what you're saying, because I thought the same thing. I spent a lot of time in church as a kid, and it wasn't until later till I started reading about the Nephilim and all that. And I was like, why weren't they talking about this?
Yeah.
I did not. I'm going to go ahead and voice that. I did not spend a lot of time in church. Heathen. Y'all can go ahead and point fingers.
Yeah.
We'll pray for you. We'll pray for you.
I appreciate it. Trust me.
Right. I wish the preacher would have focused more on the Nephilim and all those stories of giants. I had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
Does that make
I'm
you
the same way. I don't get it.
Does it make you more interested in the Bible, or more interested in that, in having those conversations, or is it just you think of those people like they're missing an opportunity?
I would say it probably makes me a little more interested. Sure.
Yeah.
Because now what I thought were just stories, like the story of David and Goliath. I thought that was just like a metaphor for a battle. It turns out, well, now knowing what I know, he seriously could have really fought a real giant.
And then he had 4 brothers, and then that part gets skipped out. There's a bunch of giants running around with the Philistines as mercenaries, right?
Well, that's right. When you start looking into the other stories, then you have to start allowing the other books of the Bible in, and I think that's why they stop it.
Yeah.
I think that's why they actively are like, because if you're going to let that in, then we're going to have to let Mary's part in and Enoch's part in, and we don't want everybody to start looking about, big flaming wheels in the sky, and maybe he went to like, yeah, we can't have that. So
I didn't even
let's
know.
leave that out.
I didn't even know that there were other books that weren't included in the King James version of the Bible when I was a kid.
That's not openly shared too while you're in the house like that either. They don't want to let you know that.
That it was decided at the Council of Nicaea which books they would keep.
And then what blows that up is when they find history, and then they find the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you're like, wait a minute. So
hold up.
So 1st century BC, the Essenes are reading the Book of Enoch, so it's not post gospel. It just wasn't around. It wasn't around in Nicaea. Well, I guess they could do another council. I mean, the Ethiopians got it; they got it in their Bible. They're figuring that out.
I think back then the reason they did a lot of that though is they didn't want people to ask too many questions.
You hit it on too. They also might not have been intelligent enough. Most of them may not have been literate.
That's why church was church. That's why you would come and gather to listen to the gospel being read, is because
no one read.
The people didn't know how to read, and they didn't have a gospel.
Then we get down the path of Martin Luther and all of this.
Talk about the control of information too. Like if you have an illiterate population and then a few select people, and I think it still happens today. I don't think we're looking at anything different, right? It's that there's this.
What's happening today?
It's happening today. There's this information.
Except people are more literate and they're just more willing to consume.
Yeah, they really are. and because we all have 30-second attention spans too.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like all I do is read headlines. Well, it's like there you go, pal.
Just clicking.
Right? Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're talking about gatekeepers, right? There's gatekeepers of information, and whether it's church, academia, politics, governments, they funnel it all down, and when they can control the flow of traffic, they can charge a fee at the door, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, it seems to me like, so podcasting is just blowing the wheels off of that. Anyone can
certain
pick up
things. Look at all the true crime podcasts that have helped solve the crimes.
I love that's how I got into podcasts. I love true crime, so I still binge.
And look at the ones. There's a bunch that's helped solve the mysteries.
Yeah.
And brought that information back out. So I agree. I think we're doing it too without realizing everybody involved.
Let's talk about this real quick then, because I'm an ancient history guy like you guys are, especially alternate. What are the most compelling you think, as far as, I don't know, I could say conspiracies, but like discoveries or rabbit trails as far as ancient history and alternate history that you guys have come across in your 10 years of podcasting? What has been most like paradigm shifting? You talk about the Sphinx. I mean, I read through all that stuff too, and it's amazing to understand that. Like, I really believe now that we're looking at old stuff that was just repurposed, right? And so that was a paradigm shift for me, because you're like, how the Egyptians build all this stuff? Like, we had an old episode on the pyramids, and it's like 2.3 million blocks, and they have to do every so often 24 hours, and we can't recreate some of this stuff today because
every 3 minutes, wasn't that what it was? Something like that. They have to lay a stone.
Yeah, something like that. Something crazy like that, right? So for you guys in this journey of 10 years, what's been the most compelling paradigm shifting stuff that you guys have come across?
There's two things that I think of for me, and I remember as a kid watching Jacques Cousteau and watching him with all the film, and I loved his accent. I love the way he narrated his shows, and watching him film some of all the old megaliths and things that are carved that are underwater, right? And you're talking about some of them are great depths, 200-300 feet. They may be underwater. And, I'm not knowing until you're bringing this up, as far as the ancient history thing, I always bought into the story until you start listening to what Randall Carlson had found. And when he found, as far as the ice shelf and what could have happened with the striking of the asteroid and the flash thawing of billions of gallons of glacial water, and how these things caused the rising of the sea levels, and how they caused a lot of what we believe took billions of years may have only happened in a very short amount of time, actually. The catastrophists. When you look at that and you start thinking about it, what got me was I looked at the underwater monuments in a different way, as the fact that those were built and that the people that built them were living there happily when the waters rose. I mean, you can imagine, they said in some places the waters could have rose over 100 foot in less than 24 hours. So we're not talking, 100 foot up the shore. We're talking 100 foot with vertical elevation as it go, you know what I'm saying? As it comes up. Yeah. So I looked at that and I was like, man, so it wasn't like a slow shift of this or that. Is like, that stuff was built and was put there, not like, because you're not going to hold your breath and dive down and carve. So I'm thinking about all the things that were there when there was less water in the ocean. And you think about, like, if you could just back up and drain the ocean back down 400 foot all around every coast, let's say, in the world. Imagine at the amount of acreage that was there. Imagine at the things that were built, because we have places now along our coastlines, they get wiped out like they didn't even exist. And it's things that we've built. So now imagine you've built stuff out of mud or sticks or hand stacked stones, and it's not all carved. So the only things that survived were the very large, very important monument at that time. So there may have been civilizations of tens of thousands of people overnight swept into the ocean, never to be seen again.
Yeah, and we see that all the time with Google Earth now being a thing where people just sit at home all day long and just go through Google Earth, and everyone's like, oh, I found this, and then I posted it on the internet, and the next day I went back and it's all blurry now. And but in college I did take underwater pyramid building, so I just want you to know that. You know?
BB stacking. He was in that.
But it's like, you know, we brought on this lady Mary Joyce, and she goes through Google Earth and finds all these underwater structures, and she said there's huge ones off the coast of California, actually near Catalina Island, and lo and behold,
surprisingly enough,
there's all these giants found there.
Yeah, Catalina Island has a giant history.
Because I have a feeling, of course, this is just me, that we have seen the rise and fall of advanced civilizations 4 or 5 times, maybe more. That, I mean, Mother Nature's undefeated. There's only 2 winners in this life: Mother Nature and Father Time. You can't beat either one. It doesn't matter. So they're all undefeated.
Bigfoot seems to be able to. He's got an in with Father Time.
That's if it's a true flesh and blood creature.
Right?
Is it part Nephilim?
That gets into a whole nother thing.
Hey, now you got to ask. We got to ask him, Nate. I mean, this is our question.
What is Bigfoot, guys? What is he?
Yeah, I mean, we ask every guest, like, what is Bigfoot? I know we're on tangents here.
Yeah,
this is what we do, I guess. But
when I'll say, when people ask me that all the time, and along the joke that's on our show all the time is, it depends on what day of the week you ask me. I constantly change my mind. Like, I will literally wake up and read a story or something, and I'll be like, oh, it's 100% real. Why can't we find any bones? Like, what's going on? And then the next day I'll be like, nah, it's impossible. It's not real. There's no way it can be real. My mind, when it comes to Bigfoot, is constantly changing. You hear the stories of it looks like an ape. You hear stories of it's really just a Neanderthal or some type of devolved human. You hear all different types of things. And then there's, like you said, it starts getting even wackier with, like, they're associated with UFO sightings. People talk about it being able to jump to a parallel universe. It seems to be, of all the cryptids, I mean, Bigfoot is probably the most confusing, I would think. I don't know what Bigfoot is.
For it to be the most well-known and the most openly accepted across the board, so much so that they use it in cartoons, they make movies for kids, they make Jack Link's, beef jerky commercials. For all of that, it is still one of the most confusing things, because you'd be surprised the number of people that you ask about it that have no idea.
Yeah.
They just know what it was as far as like the joke, they don't really know because they don't look, because it's just that. It's more of a novelty these days than it is anything else. And you would really think that we would find.
Yeah. Why do so many people see them?
Yeah. Nailed down hard evidence. But we don't find nailed down hard evidence. You need a body.
I feel like the tabloids are propaganda. You know, they put Bigfoot on the tabloids to make you think that it's all a joke. And then it seems like it's just disinformation, you know.
Could be.
There's
very
people
well could be.
From all over, if you're in Australia, it's the Yowie. If you're in China, it's the Yeren. If you're in Russia, it's the Almosti. If you're in British Columbia, it's, Sasquatch or skunk ape.
I think it should be all mosty all the time. It just sounds like it.
Almosti is a good word.
Oh yeah. I mean,
that just sounds like a great description.
If you're from like the Ural Mountains, I mean, it's a different type of white person.
Those are tough peoples. Yeah. So I can only imagine their big feet would be tough.
Yeah, you gotta be.
Yeah, because that place is a different place. That's a rough.
I also find it interesting, guys, that, like, because this is in an alternate space, you got people that spend their lifetime researching this creature and come to different conclusions, and to the grave different conclusions, which I think is fascinating, because there's not a lot of other subjects out there where people are like, oh, this is my thing I study and this is my conclusion. And to have it be such a variety of weirdness it's all weird at the end of the day. You think it's Gigantopithecus or some kind of like human hybrid, or it goes between dimensions.
Aliens drop it off.
Right. And he drives the UFO. But these people, spend time researching this thing, and they all come with different, which I think is fascinating, different conclusions. It's not like you have a consensus, I feel like you would studying other things. Whatever it may be. While history is a great example. We have this defined narrative of things. This is what it is. Mm-hmm. This is how it happened. And then you have the alternate stuff where you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. But I feel like those factions kind of will align. Whereas this is just like, it's a free for all.
I think and you nailed it right there, is other things can be close to that. You could use the exact same terminology or the exact same track with religion. It's studied, it has been taken, but the one thing is it has a base to start from. There's not even a base to start from with this, because we don't have any physical evidence that we can guarantee for sure this is what this is, and where we can take the next step. So I feel that's where it comes from. And that's what makes it so frustrating is you got people that, like you said, is it driving the UFO? Does the orbs bring it in? Does it slip in and out? And all these different shapes, they leave tracks.
Right, you got lots of circumstantial evidence, right? You
Yes.
got the footprints and casts, and you've got people that got poop in the
Smells.
freezer, like
Yeah,
Ken Walker. Yeah. I mean, I got scat. You know,
Yeah,
I've seen
hair.
seen where he beds down, and you're like, well, none of that stuff is.
Sierra sounds.
Yeah.
Those things are so mad at each other. You're like, what are they doing?
There's samurai talking.
They
man.
just, I think they just speak 100 times faster than we do. They're just quicker.
I have read a story took place in the Sam Houston National Forest that a person had talked about on the Lone Star Trail. It's like a 96 to 100 mile little through hike trail all through the Sam Houston. And the person was talking about being in their tent about 3 o'clock in the morning, heard what sounded like two things walking. So you can always tell a biped for just the cadence at which it walks.
Right.
Heard two bipeds come past this person in their tent and said that it sounded like a cross between Russian and Chinese being spoken. And that you could tell the way it was almost like you could feel it was talking about this person that they had heard, or that they knew were there. I don't know, man. I guess that's probably why it really, and I always say that the Fae are my favorite because I like the little people of the woods. And then you find all the stories of the little people that have been, hell, in Tennessee. They hide easier. They're harder to find.
You and Nate, dude. Nate is obsessed with little people. This is like
Luke razzes me every episode that I love the little people.
he brings it up. It's like one of those things. It's like one of those inside jokes. I feel like where you always have to bring one thing up and just but bring it into the conversation. Like maybe I can get through. I worked in TV for a while, and so when we did TV, we'd always have the guys that work with be like, maybe we can just slip this in. Something funny, inside joke, it would make it seem natural, right? I bet you I could say this and slip it in.
Come on,
That's
yeah.
what we do with our show and little people. But Nate actually has an unhealthy obsession with
The Fae.
We used to do that in band interviews when you were getting interviewed. We just get asked the same questions. We'd always have these inside jokes and we try to slip them into the
It's
interviews.
like Super Troopers. It's like you play the meow game, right?
That's
You're
it.
like,
Come
meow,
on, meow.
Yeah.
meow, now meow, listen, meow.
Yeah.
Am I jumping around all nimbly pimbly?
Are you saying about kitty cat meow?
Dude, I love it. Well, you guys bring up a good point. Okay, so you tell us a story. You've been listening to Bigfoot stories for a decade, and I know there's 2 or 3 that have stuck with you guys. I know there's a few that are just like you can't forget them.
Yeah.
What are those? I mean, that's what I want to know.
I already know where Cam's going to go with his, so I'm going to do mine. You're right. I've heard every story you could possibly think of. I've had hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds or thousands emailed to the show over the years. I've been to the conferences. I've talked to people. I've met people. I've heard all these stories, but the one that stuck with me the most was an old rancher that I've known since I was a little kid, probably 7 or 8 years old. And he lives not far from our town, has a bunch of land. He's a big rancher, like I said, and he's old. He's probably 80 now, still alive. And I remember distinctly, he found out what I was doing with the show. And he pulled me aside one day and he told me that he saw a Bigfoot one day out there at his ranch. And what was shocking to me wasn't that just the story wasn't shocking. I mean, it was just like when you run average run of the mill things. He was looking, saw something walking in the field, thought it was one of his cows or something, got some binoculars and then watched it for a few minutes. And, he didn't know what it was, never really said nothing, said something to his wife, his sons. But when he was telling me the story, he was like, Kyle, it can't be real, but I saw it. He's like, I know how crazy this sounds. And then he would tell me some more and he would always stop and just say, like, I know how crazy this sounds. It was like he wasn't willing to admit it to himself. And this wasn't like, I've met people at conferences that they're obviously trying to sell a book or t-shirts. They're trying to cash in on the Bigfoot thing, or I'm a researcher. There's no reason for this guy to make it up. No reason whatsoever. In fact, I was glad that he came forward and told me. So for me, I know it's not an exciting story. for the listeners out there, but for me, that was like a heartfelt moment from a person I know was genuine. This person, been through a lot in his life, not somebody that would just make up a Bigfoot story. And so when people like him, I've met others that I didn't know, but had really heartfelt stories. It's stuff like that and people like that and stories like that I hear that keeps me. Those are the days where I'm on, I believe it's real days, because there's no reason for them to make it up. And even if it was imagined, like say they were on some new experimental blood pressure medication that causes you to hallucinate, or they're just wiring's not right. And they thought they saw Bigfoot, but they really didn't. Either way, the effect that it has on them is exactly the same. Their lives are forever changed because they believe they saw a Sasquatch, whether it terrified them, whether they were just more curious, whether they felt a kinship with nature. The effect is the same, whether it's real or not. And so I don't try to judge people. I just like to listen to their stories. But that old rancher, that's one of my favorites.
Do you feel like naturally you're kind of a skeptic, or do you feel like that? Because there's some people who just believe. They don't need a lot. They just believe.
Okay. I wouldn't say, for me, naturally, I'm a skeptic.
Okay.
I think that's why there still are a lot of days where I just can't get myself to wrap my head that it's a real thing. But then
until you see one,
I've got to see I've got to see one. I really need to see like a dead one. Like I need to see the body.
You don't want one peering in your window at night.
Then we'll see a dead one.
And then I'm
Then we'll see it.
Peers in my window. We'll all get a good look at one.
Yeah. That's another thing.
You guys can retire. That happens. You can retire for real when that happens.
Right. And so that's another big argument we always talk about, is like, it's almost one of those things where I want Bigfoot discovered, but then I don't, because then the magic's gone.
Yeah.
100%.
Like that's half the fun.
Well, then you just move on. There's Dog Man and Goat Man and
see, Dog Man. I
don't.
Then you just get abducted. All those things you can look forward to.
I don't want no part of that abduction. After they started releasing all that stuff with the aliens are real and the government's talking about, I don't. I'm out.
So tell them your Bigfoot
okay.
story.
My favorite one. So we interviewed a fellow. We'd probably only been podcasting 2 months when we got Gary
very
on.
early, yeah.
So Gary Christensen, and I should know. I should have checked up on him and all that. I don't even know if Gary's still alive. He was old whenever we had spoken to him. And Gary was a field investigator for the BFRO down here in Texas. And so Kyle actually went to his house and got to talk to him some and hang out. And then Gary come on the show and we were talking about it. So Gary, I asked him, I said, would you tell me, what's one of your favorite stories about Bigfoot? And he told this, and it instantly became my favorite. And like I said, it's one of those things that took place in either North or South Dakota, but he had gone up there for a family get together and was going to, I think, do some pheasant hunting while he was up there and whatnot. And this had been probably 15 or 20 years before he was even on the podcast, maybe 15 years or so. And so while he's up there, they knew that they had found out about him being involved in the Bigfoot stuff and all that. And they said, well, you need to go talk to so-and-so, this woman or whatever, that had gone to school there, and ask them about the Bigfoot they saw when they were kids. And he was like, okay, that sounds awesome. And he was like, what makes it so unique? He's like, well, it attacked a group of kindergartners at their school. And he was like, oh, okay, I'm down. I'm going to go check this out.
All right.
So he goes and he asks the lady, he's, finds her, and he's like, what happened? And she says, oh, this thing, we were out on the playground and this Bigfoot came up out of a creek bottom and said, we're all out there playing. Everything's great. And of course, this is back in the day. There's no fences around the playgrounds at school. I mean, this is way back before you even wore helmets. Like, who even knew what that was? So he comes up out of the creek, and they said the Bigfoot's roaring and banging around and grabs like a stump, pulls it out of the ground, throws it over by the kids, raising all kinds of ruckus. The police show up. There's gunfire at the Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot flees off into the backcountry. And he said, man, does anybody else? And she's like, oh, yeah. And she gives a few more names, and he ends up talking and gets the same story from these kids.
They're terrified.
All of them. Yeah, they're kindergartners, first grade kindergarten, I believe. And they're in their 40s at this point, and they're freaked out. And then he finds out you need to go talk to the teacher. She's still alive, still lives here. Go talk. So Gary nails it down, goes to talk to her. Gets it, knocks on the door, makes them, the meeting, and says, this is what I'm here to talk to you about and all that. And she kind of laughed, and she goes, why would you want to talk about that? And they go, well, because of the way it impacted everybody, what you was involved in. And she's like, no, it was a joke. It was a joke for Halloween. And he's like, excuse me? And she goes, it was the principal. He was in the suit.
Oh,
and he goes, he's still alive. So he gets the principal's address and contacts him and goes to the principal's office. So all this plays out over a series of days. And he goes to the principal's office. That tells you how many times I've been in trouble. Right? Look, that's a Freudian slip. Like, get your butt down there.
It was a home office.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All the time. Yeah. And so he goes to the principal's house and starts talking to the fella. And the man comes out and tells him, he was like, that was all done for Halloween. We contacted the police. We got it all set up. They came up with blanks. I was in the suit. I was throwing the stump. We'd already took it loose, had everything. We were just trying to scare the kids for Halloween. The teachers were playing along. And Gary looked at him and goes, did you ever tell the kids? And he was like, nah, it never really crossed my mind. He goes, you know how damaged these adults are? He's like, there are people that refuse to camp, have never gone into the woods again since they were in kindergarten. Nightmares continually for years that this thing is out there.
Oh, man.
That the cops couldn't kill it and all this stuff. And so Gary went back and explained and handed out phone numbers like, here, call him. He'll tell you. Call your old teacher. She'll tell you. And pretty much laid the whole thing out. And that goes back into exactly what Kyle had touched on in his story, is it doesn't matter if it's real or not. If you believe it's real, it has the exact same effect. Doesn't matter. So these people were hoaxed. And for 35 years, that's what they believed, only to be told. Now, how that goes back to what we talked about early. As a professor, you've spent 35 years learning one thing. How are you going to change your mind just because one guy told you? Even the guy that's involved, the guy that's responsible, comes and said, hey, look, it was all a joke. Real easy for them to go, nah, I don't believe you. Nah, I don't believe you. Nah, I don't believe you. That is my favorite Bigfoot story.
Yeah, that is a great one. That is great. And you know what? It raises so many questions.
Yes.
Because like the other day, you know, we get a lot of emails and messages now. We're starting to kind of get a lot of traffic of just stuff people send to us. And someone sent us a flat earth link. And I thought, you know, I've never actually looked into this. I'm just curious. So I watched a little thing. And in my mind for a second, I thought this would be a great analogy to talk about on the show. What if, and I've never looked into this and I do not believe this is true, but what if the earth is flat and we've all convinced ourselves it's round? And what if one day it comes out, you know, I don't think it will, but you know what I'm saying? Like it sounds insane to 99.9% of people. But my point is like when you think about it in that perspective, because I think there's way more evidence for Bigfoot and there's thousands of stories and there's physical casts and all that stuff. But I'm just saying, like, if you think about it for a second, it makes you feel vulnerable. It makes you feel like, man, I could be really wrong about something that I believe is true.
Absolutely. I think that the reality is we all are vulnerable and we create these stories and these ideas to make you feel safe. When you die, you're going to go to a better place. You're going to walk down the street of gold with your grandpa and your first pet, like no one knows if that's going to happen, but it makes you feel better at night. Or you think that someone's looking out for you, or there's no monsters in the woods. You know, I think we create these beliefs so that we don't, like you said, don't feel vulnerable. When in reality, we're all very vulnerable. I could be killed in a car wreck on the way home from this recording. You just don't know, but you can't live your life, you know, terrorized by it all the time. I mean, there's things flying by the planet all the time. We're literally in a shooting gallery and all it takes is one of those objects to hit the earth.
It's back to the Stone Age.
And it's back to the Stone Age.
And yet we've spent this whole year, a majority of us living in fear.
Mm-hmm.
Not
down here, but I mean, everybody else.
Not here either. No, but the irony of that though is right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Right. And everything we have is digital now. Like when I was a kid, you had a photo album. And you could go through the album.
Mom kept them underneath the coffee table.
You could look at pictures of when you were at your fifth birthday and stuff. Now everything is digital. All it takes is a giant solar flare and everything's erased. And
right.
I mean, that's
except for those baby pictures, those nude baby pictures from the, you know, from
Polaroids
from the early 80s, right? I'm like, dude, man,
They'll survive.
Yeah.
Can we burn those now?
I mean, solar flares are a real thing. It's not a question if this is going to happen again. It's definitely going to happen. It's just when. You don't know. Same thing with asteroids. Same thing with comets.
But the exact opposite could be true, right? Like,
Sure.
you could walk on the streets of gold one day.
You could.
You don't
You
know.
don't know.
That's the point.
That's why I say I don't know.
That's why there's Pascal's wager or whatever, that like you might just want to believe it because if it turns out to be true. I don't know if that's a good way to reason to believe in something. I was just kind of going through the feed and looking to the flat earth thing, and people believe that thing. I think people believe in flat earth.
Kyrie came out and said he believed in it.
Well, I think it has the most hardcore followers.
Yeah, they're very hardcore.
You can be hardcore and unintelligent at the same time.
There's a lot of those. Yeah,
It's okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
But the flat earth thing it just kind of, what am I wrong about? Like what am I so convinced about that I could just be flat out wrong?
Moon landing.
I'm 50-50.
Here he loves to just drop those. It's like, hey, watch this. Ow.
I don't know.
What
What do you guys think? I mean,
As long as we're talking about flat Earth, right? That would be hand in hand, right?
Flat Earth gets him wound up because his father graduated from Penn State with a degree in surveying, and so his father was a surveyor for how long?
Long 37 years.
Yeah. So that was always the joke, because I'm sure if it was flat, he'd have picked up on it sooner or later.
But earlier in the podcast, you were saying that these academics are the most susceptible because, like, the Egyptologists,
but it is just mad,
right?
Right. That's absolutely true.
Basic, pretty basic, really.
You're spot on with the flat earthers being very defensive.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of feeds into tribalism,
Very much.
which is like a built-in part of humans. I think that the flat earthers, that's their tribe, and the people I've talked to that are part of that group, they like the idea of knowing something that no one else knows, even if it's not real. Like that's their angle, right? Is, oh, you guys are all fools. You guys are so stupid. You don't even realize you're being lied to.
They're like hipsters, right? They're like, I got this band. You don't know about it.
Dude, that's a really good analogy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All these hipsters are just flat earthers.
That's it. In tighter pants.
Right? Yeah.
But we've had people like, why don't you ever talk about it? Or you need to look into it. It's just trigonometry. And like they throw all this stuff
there's also,
at you.
there's no win. You couldn't win when you go down those paths. There's certain paths. What's the old adage? Never get in an argument with a pig. I mean, it's that same thing. There's no winning that.
Yeah.
So what's the point? It's a belief system. And so that's it. If that's the way you want to believe, if it makes you happy, believe that way.
It's like you need to have sort of an open hand belief, right?
Yeah.
You want to hold the bird in your hand and you want to close it tightly and say, this is what I believe. But it's like, I want it to sit there, but I also want to have this other part of me that's it's free to fly away. And when I was thinking about hipsters, Luke, it's veganism, right? Hipsters and veganism, they kind of go together with that whole cultish thing.
That's right.
They can have that.
CrossFit.
But I just got to say, though, I love that you guys have been podcasting for a decade, and both your stories really, like, one of them is kind of a gag joke, and the other one's just like this sweet old man kind of almost in tears telling you a story. It's not this epic story of Bigfoot came out and there was 10 of them and they were ripping each other's heads off.
And we've got them. We can tell you, dude, I can tell you some crazy, and so can Kyle, crazy stories.
Yeah.
But those aren't the ones that stick with you.
Right.
And that's what's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the ones that they're very moving. Like he's talking about, I have a friend of mine that I had talked about with little people who actually had a sighting of small Native Americans multiple times in South Texas and Southwest Texas down there. And
How small?
24 inches, 18 to 24 inches.
It's like Indian in the cupboard.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
That's
but
what
full
even I
grown,
talked about
not like
with
chubby, like
No, it literally looked like you had taken, from the way he described it to me and the way I envisioned it, it's like you have taken the most noble warriors, the braves that you had seen in paintings, any of the most noble ones, and you have shrank them down to about 18 to 24 inches tall. And that's what he came to within about 20 foot of was those. But he actually had seen
how many?
Had some things missing. I think it was 2 or 3. I think it was 3 that he.
Were they making shoes?
So what happened was this: he was hunting down there. Yeah, he's hunting down in Southwest Texas, and he said he's wanted to get on this place forever on this deer lease, and he's still on it now. I've actually been on it. That's one of the things that you don't really tell. It was like, I know exactly where this is at, but where he was at, he said he was down there. There was some things went missing out of like a shed that they had, and where they kept 4-wheelers and more corn and just gear. And he said, but it wasn't things like you would imagine. He said it was like the lid off of a spray paint can. He was like, I think one of the sockets went missing, and and that was always the joke. It's like a 10 millimeter, 12, something like that. It's always the one that's missing. And it's something
sounds like they're building a hot tub.
Exactly. Well, and we have a crazy
paint can.
Yeah. And so it goes on like that, where he had these things go missing. And then during one of the turkey seasons he was out there, he had seen like what he thought was toddler footprints by a little concrete water trough in the middle of nowhere. And these little footprints led from the water trough off into some grass, and then he lost the tracks. And he was like, is somebody's kid out here lost? So then he goes to look and never finds anything. One day he's hunting one late season, like late December, early January, sees something on the neighbor's place, starts glassing it off into a valley, thinks it's javelina, maybe raccoon, something along those lines, and sees 3 little tiny Native Americans wearing stuff, like wearing furs and carrying things, and like little walking sticks. One of them looks a little older, and they're way out in the other place. Of course, he's bow hunting, and he watches them go up this ridge where he had seen animals move up these trails and then go off. And he's like, what did I just witness? And this was like every couple of years. And then the last one was during a spring turkey season. He's calling and trying to get in on some toms. And he said he pulled his decoys and slipped off into a creek. And when they flash flood, then they're full of silt in the bottom, right? So then when there's no water down there, it's just super quiet. So you can just run down through there, not make any noise. And it's low enough that he could kind of duck down a little so he could move out of the side of the turkey. He's trying to get way around in front of him, set up his decoys, call them to him. He said he's working his way. He's full camo, working his way down through there. And he said he turns a little bend in the creek, and at 20 foot up on the creek, up on that dry creek bank, are the natives standing there. And he said, I kid you not, they looked like they had on, had little bows and arrows. One of them had like a rabbit with it's like the lashing around its feet, like a crossbody strap. He's like, one of them had something on like a necklace. And he said, I swear it had to be that damn socket. I know that's what it was. And he was like, and he goes, I guess maybe the cups, the lid was a cup. I don't know what it was, but he said, I froze and they froze. And he said, I'm 20 foot from them. And he said, I'm there long enough. He said, I'm talking, this is 10, 15 seconds, maybe, where he's like, I'm looking at him. I don't know what to do. Because he said, this is a real quiet guy. Like, this dude doesn't talk about, it was his wife that ended up making him tell me about this whole stuff. He said, it makes you second guess everything that you know in your life, everything that you've ever been taught, everything that you've ever thought of. It changes everything that very day, because there's something in front of you that should not be there. And your whole life you've been taught this. And now here it is. And he said, all he did was look, and he said, they were froze just like, and he said, he just kind of nodded at them and just kept going. He said, I just went back to my hunt. He goes, except I went out of the creek and went all the way back to the house, packed up all my stuff. And he said, I got gone. He said, one of those deals, he couldn't be around anybody. But he also said the guys that hunted with him, none of them ever said anything about it. It wasn't until a few years later, one of them had kind of made an inside joke about maybe he had seen or witnessed something. But he has told me from that encounter in the creek that he has never seen another track. He's never seen, nothing's gone missing. He said, it's like when they knew we were there, they left. And he's like, it bothers him still to this day. He's like, I feel like I'm the one that ran them off of their place just because they saw me there. But he was like, dude, what I saw, it doesn't make any sense. What I saw, it doesn't make any sense. What I saw, it doesn't make any sense. What I saw, it doesn't make any
That's crazy.
Dude, it's an insane. And I'm sitting in his living room. He's telling me this. I'm sitting on the couch. Right. He's in his chair. And he's looking at me, telling me this up on his, and he's like, dude, this is what, and I'm like, man, I can't, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah. I mean, you just described Nate's dream scenario.
Yeah.
He's going to spend his whole life hoping this happens.
That's literally the first little people story I think I've ever heard. So it's impossible that I love these things.
I mean, but it's wild.
That is incredible. And that's the difference between these creatures and Bigfoot is Bigfoot's always naked. He's just out there in his fur and he don't care. But these things clothe themselves. And supposedly the ancient giants that are still walking around some of these places that come out of the ground are also wearing clothes. So the little people wear clothes. Bigfoot won't. The giants will. There's some level of awareness going on. They're legitimate little people.
You guys are in Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
There is a giant gravesite with thousands of little people somewhere in Tennessee. I don't remember the name of it.
Really?
I'll have to find that for you. The name of that
please do.
site and send it to you.
Well, I feel like your brain turns on for the first time when you turn 40 years old. It's like now I'm like at that age where I feel like I'm ready to relearn everything. When you describe that guy seeing those little people and the process of himself deconstructing, trying to figure out what's going on, what are all these things that I was told. I mean, the weird thing happened in reverse for me, and a lot of people might have this experience. I saw a werewolf creature in the window of my parents' house as a kid. Maybe 5 or 6. And it wasn't until I was 30-something years old when I started listening to podcasts when I was like, wait a minute. I thought I made that up. What if I actually did see a dog man? You know? Oh, the only thing I remember is the moment it happened, screaming and running. And then I remember not looking out the window for like 5 years when I would go from the TV room to the kitchen. So I remember the trauma, right? So either I convinced myself I saw something or I actually did see something. You go through life and you forget it, and then you start hearing these dogman stories, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. So some people have the reverse experience where they see something as a kid, they write it off as a childhood experience, they go on. But then it's a much different thing to be 40, 45, in the woods, you've been hunting your whole life, and then you see something.
Yeah.
That'll screw you up. And because you don't have anything to blame it on. Yeah. It's just, I saw that. I'm not high, you know?
And like in your case, you kind of have to look at it as, would you, a dream or a fictitious memory that you kind of jazz yourself up about when we're kids, usually, not all the time, but usually doesn't have that kind of trauma associated with it. Because deep down in your subconscious, your mind knows you made it up. Right. Whether you believe it or not, because I mean, we do things all the time subconsciously. So whether your mind knows you made it up or not, it doesn't come with trauma because it knows the truth. But whenever there's some sort of stressor that's still involved with it, that always lends me to believe that there may be more to it, that your way of dealing with it at that age was to play it off as a feigned memory. And in reality, no, it was real. The reason that your mind played it off that way is so you didn't lose it at that point and just shut completely down. Because my friend in his 40s, when he saw this, it was hard on him. His wife said it took 2 weeks before he was right. That she said that he wasn't just very melancholy and solemn all day. And this man owns a very large construction company. Like that's what he's always done, is large commercial construction. And so for him to be and he's a quiet guy, like I said, anyway, he's a no nonsense. He's one of those dudes, like I always talk about, he's just one of those guys that he doesn't have time for, grab ass. There's none of that in his life. We're all business, but for it to affect him that way. Yeah. It's kind of like yours. It's just, people have different ways of addressing it. And then you realize looking back, you're like, yeah, this might've been something. I can't imagine. I would much rather have an experience from 5 than I would at 45.
Yeah. So you're in this space where your brain's wired, your thoughts are wired, your beliefs are wired, and then boom, it's easier for a kid, I think, to see something like that.
100%.
It's like Harry and the Henderson. Oh, okay. Now back to my toys. Like I don't, it doesn't really,
and it may be the reason the kids have so many more encounters, or we talk about past life experiences when the kids are talking about it, or you talk about the fact that they are more, we always talk about it being in tuned or more with the frequency of these things. Yeah. And as you get older, you lose that ability because you're learning to be yourself or, whatever. But it does seem like when we even talk about girls at a certain age seem to be more in tune with these things and also more vulnerable to evil entities or darkness or dark things that can take it over at a certain age too. So you wonder, there is an area in there where your mind is very malleable and open to a lot of things. And what you're saying makes a ton of sense, is because once it gets to a certain area, you've kind of experienced enough to where you're finding out who you are. And then, like I said, I can't imagine, as much as I would love to have an experience now because of what we do, I really don't want it. And I would never share it, even if I did. We've talked about that, because you can't, a guy that talks about crazy crap on a podcast can't go have all these cool encounters and come in without it smelling a little bit fishy. Yeah. So even if I had something crazy, I'd be like, no, I'm not telling them about that.
Right. And another thing I'd like to point out is, I don't know if you guys get this, but like, we are not cryptozoologists. No. We're not authorities. We're not trying to be. We're not trying to seek the truth. We just simply like sharing the stories because I think they're cool.
Yeah.
I'm a storyteller.
I think we like the stories, but I think we like the truth. I have that, like, I want to know. But one thing real quick, it reminded me of, Luke, is the story when all those construction workers quit the job site, and right before the Patterson-Gimlin film was filmed, they were building roads through, and the Sasquatch was flipping the tires at night, their tractor tires.
Yes.
And there were all these tracks. Half the workers quit.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to imagine those dudes are probably hefty dudes, and they quit because they were so afraid.
I go one step deeper to that whole thing is the reason that you wouldn't quit over something unknown.
Right.
You're going to quit over something that you've either heard spoke of by the local natives that maybe you've worked with in the past,
or you've seen it,
or you've had an experience, or you know somebody that's had an experience. There's a lot of ways to do it. I just feel like they knew more than what they were really alluding to in that whole time. I mean, we all hear the stories. I always think about the one at Mount St. Helens after the eruption. You talk about all the military men that were talking about finding these creatures, these Bigfoot
burnt up,
that were burnt or they were injured, and the military was taking them, and they had to sign all this stuff saying, yeah, they're going here and you didn't see anything and all this. Whether we don't know if those stories are valid or not, but either way, I mean, if they were out there, that would be the best way to find them after something like that, when it's burned off half the countryside. I often wonder what you could find after some of these large forest fires as they come through, because they talk about them, killing elk or moose or, mule deer herds or wherever it's at as it pushes it in. Well, they're all much faster than a biped, much faster, much more nimble footed than a biped. I don't care how, I mean, you're telling me that something that's 8 foot tall and allegedly weighs 400 pounds can move over the land like an elk can? I've hunted them, and I don't think that there's anything on 2 legs can move like those things can through the mountains. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
So fire, if it catches an elk, is going to catch a Bigfoot. So there's got to be something out there, unless they're actively hiding it or it's not there.
Well, we talk about too, like the idea that if you were to come upon a skeleton itself, if they're similar to humans, that there's a ton of room for misidentification. We talked about with a guy who's a taxidermist up in Canada about how you wouldn't really be able to tell a whole lot of difference, and maybe you'd think it was human, and so you'd maybe call the authorities, or maybe you'd want nothing to do with it.
I've never found or even a dead mountain lion. Finding an actual dead, and I don't mean killed by something. I'm talking about died of old age. For all we know, they go den up. They go somewhere, just like house, you talk about house pets, dogs, cats, whatnot, they would leave. I mean, they just kind of go off, and that's the way it happens. And I often wonder if it's that way. Is the reason you're not finding a dead Bigfoot is because it's extremely hard to find them alive. It's even harder to find them dead, because we don't know what their rituals are. If they have them, we have to assume that they are at a high level of intelligence, that if they are there, that there is some high level of intelligence, and they may have all of our good attributes and none of our bad. So like we talk about, the only thing that separates us from the animal kingdom is our brain, our ability to learn how to defend ourselves, weapons, things like that. If you took us right now, stripped you naked, and dropped you off in the Rockies, how long you think you're going to last? You don't have a knife. You don't have anything. Just naked Luke. How long are you going to last in the mountains?
Well, I can get pretty hairy. So, I mean, maybe.
Yeah. And you look at, you're like, I really am a child out here. Like,
right.
What am I going to be able to
I got opposable thumbs, but that's all I got going for me right now, right?
Yeah. You're just like, I guess I'm going to find the softest place to get eaten. I really don't know.
You're like, I should have watched those. I should have watched those survival YouTube channels. Damn it.
Need to be
Why didn't I do
bushcrafting up here.
that? So I mean, the question is, it sounded like earlier, about a few minutes ago, we were talking that you guys, to me, it sounded like almost like you don't want to see a Bigfoot. Like you don't want to see him now.
I don't want the magic to be gone.
That's me. I'm afraid that if they're discovered and it's proven that it's a scientific species and it's given a scientific name and a phylum and everything,
And it can't do all the cool stuff we think it can.
But would you want to have an encounter or no?
To see,
Yeah,
yes.
I would. Yeah, for sure. Because I'd like to know.
I'm extremely skeptical about everything. I would take terror with an answer. Yeah, I would take that.
Is Bigfoot stealing people in the woods? I mean, that's another question people always ask.
And I have to think of it this way. I don't think they're all the same. Just like people aren't all the same. We got good ones and we got bad ones. It has to be the same way. And there's got to be some real nefarious big feats out there. So I would think yes. I don't even know if I should get into this. Okay. Kyle and I have discussed this at length. I was always under the assumption of if you hear there's lots of time there's more men that go missing than women.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to go out there with this. So everybody buckle up. This is crazy. It's crazy talk.
Take us down the road.
So in my thinking, there are times that first calf heifers, if you have a mama cow and it's the very first time she's ever calving and she gets what's known as like big bred, or she is bred by a bull that is much larger than her, maybe a much larger species, whatever it is. Lots of times she can't throw that calf without help and it will kill both of them. You'll lose the calf and you will lose that. So the reason, in my opinion, that you can't abduct women and Bigfoot would want to use them for breeding purposes is for that reason alone. A woman cannot give birth to a Bigfoot to help, because you have to think about this now as a breeding group. Okay.
This is crazy theory, by the way.
This is my crazy person theory. As crazy as it sounds, if you wanted to prolong your species, right, and you're having problems and you already know how it is, it would be easier to abduct a male and have a male breed a female Bigfoot because she could have the child. Then that child could go on and breed other big feet, however it is, and be all right, allegedly. Maybe not, maybe, but it's much easier for that first generation to take the step than it would be for the male Bigfoot to try to breed a female human. And then her gestation period may not be as long or may be longer. We don't know. And the size of the birth weight of the baby may be much larger than what the female human is used to giving birth to. Hence the fact that she's in air quotes big bred, and you might lose both the mother and the child.
I love it.
I'll sign off with the crazy talk. I'll catch y'all next time.
I love it. I mean, just, as a father watching two kids come into the world, you do realize that second pregnancy is different than the first one, and the delivery
Very
is second.
much so.
It's different the second time around. And I was right up in there, and that was a crazy experience. That's a whole nother.
It's like Little League and AAA ball, right? Or Double A.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
it's a whole different game now. Like,
yeah,
she is a pro.
I mean, I've even had friends say that on their third or fourth kid, the wife was walking to her car, and it just the baby came right out, and he literally caught it.
Wasn't that the one in Monty Python?
That doesn't happen your first pregnancy.
No,
it doesn't happen.
But and also, of course, the argument is well, there's more men in the woods than women. Well, that's true. There's more men in prison than women. There's more men doing a lot of things than women. It's just more men do dumb stuff. I get it.
But that is true.
The reproduction thing that seems to be an obsession with a lot of these. It doesn't just go with Bigfoot. It goes with everything. Like people are being harvested for reproduction reasons. It seems like across the board.
Hey, we're all everybody here over 40, then we're good. We don't have to worry about that either, right? They're not going to take us for reproduction. Look,
you're good till you're dead, man. You you got to be careful.
That's why I'm in the woods all the time. Come on, come get it. Oh, don't twist my arm, Bigfoot. Don't twist my arm.
Right. Oh,
I'd take one for the team just to know what's going on out there.
I won't do it. I won't.
Yeah. Y'all tell him you wouldn't take one for the team just to know what's going on out there.
Wait, so have you heard those stories? Have you heard a story where a guy was
Albert Ostman, the Ostman story?
Yeah, the Ostman story.
Yeah.
Is that where he got kidnapped in his sleeping bag?
Yeah.
No, I mean more like
there for a few weeks.
Was more like a forced into a sexual
forced breeding. No, but that's what Albert thought that's what their plans they had for him, but he got away.
That's what that's kind of what spurred the whole idea of that is that story when I first heard it many moons ago, was that whole thing there, is because he said he had a feeling that he was there for breeding purposes for the younger female.
Man.
So the juju was in the air. He knew
something was up.
It was about to go down.
She had flowers in her hair. She's walking back and forth.
Yeah. She's bathed in the creek a couple times.
It up. Twerking Bigfoot.
Yeah.
This reminds me of your cardio metaphor. You're 5 laps around the track, and Luke and I are just trying to catch up right now. You know, we're just like, what's he talking about?
It's like I'm certifiably crazy, probably. So y'all just haven't you've not done it for 10 years. You give it another 10 years, you're going to be insane.
I know.
Because I'll ask y'all a question. Have you got any more answers or just more questions?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That long pause means it's a lot more questions. Yeah. Because you just said earlier that you started on one and then you had to start reading on history and then that leads into the next. And you're just like, I should have never even opened this book.
Yeah. I think it is questions, but I want to see, I'm maybe with you guys, but I want to go see this stuff. I want to go put my hands in the drill holes in Egypt. I want to see the skulls. I want to see the skulls in Paracas. I want to touch some of this stuff.
So you'd take one for the team for Bigfoot? Just to go see him and be like, yeah. I ain't gonna tell y'all how I know. I just know.
Hey there, big guy. Yeah.
Luke, you're 6'4", so they might want you. Yeah, watch out, Luke.
Yeah, that's scary.
How big?
I'm staying in my house.
6'4".
Yeah, dude, you don't need to be out there. You'd have a hard time hiding. They're gonna find you.
Yeah. I better work on my cardio, get a little faster.
And above tree line's gonna be not fun.
I've climbed Mount Hood a couple times. I'll tell you, it's not fun up there. Not for a big guy. Yeah, I mean,
well, you guys say something that I was thinking about with Luke earlier because we always get razzed. We were getting razzed early on our Instagram. You post a photo of something mysterious, and people could just they rip at you like, "This is a fake. Everyone knows this is a hoax." And I'm like, dude, some fans send it in. I don't know. I phrase it as a question. Do you think we're experts on all this material? I feel like a 3rd grader who's just learning how to write and do math for the first time, and I'm 40 years old because there's this expanded perspectives. I mean, it's, you know what I mean? You know, see how I did that?
I get it.
Like,
I see what you're doing there.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I mean, we're just we're all students right now. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows. And the experts that come on your threads, it's just like, okay, buddy, you're the expert. Start a show. Start your own podcast. Let me know how that goes. Cause
yeah, I agree. You should, let's not, to stay open-minded.
Yeah.
And don't always agree, even with experts.
Not with
Well, how many times have you changed your mind over things that are just normal life stuff that you were like, oh, I thought that was, you think about eggs. How many times we've been told eggs are bad for you? Like growing up a bunch.
Yeah.
And eggs are bad. Now they're good. Now they're bad. Now they're good. I'm like, eggs and egg. I don't really. So it's one of those things is like we said, you got to stay open-minded. You try to learn every day. You try to keep up on what's going on and let's see it and be willing to change your mind. And I wish I was as confident in my mindset and my beliefs as some of the people that come on and bash other people. As I'm like, man, is it because you really don't believe that? Or is it because it's attacking something that fundamentally you feel a little uneasy about? And so you're not willing to go, was it keep your friends close, your enemies closer? It's one of those things like you kind of got to learn. You got to read the dark side before you can see the light side. You can't just go down one path. You got to be willing to kick over a few rocks. But some people don't like that. Some people, just like you said, they want to be right for any reason.
And they want things black and white. And I think things aren't black and white. There's a lot of gray,
No, I think also, I don't know, there's something about this space too that I think maybe personally just you want to believe there's a lot more, and to an extent, like I don't, not to the point where I blindly believe anything, but the more you look in, the more you realize that there is more. I don't think you can ever then go back and just be okay with the narrative of the status quo, right? You
can't unread pill.
That's right. Yeah.
Doesn't he ask that? He's asking, can I go back? And you're like, no, man, you can never go back. And I think that's it.
It's funny. We have an 80s theme on our show. It's funny. We do a lot of 80s rehashes, and it reminds me of that scene in Back to the Future when he's pulling up the newspaper in the future and it says cholesterol cures cancer, and you know what I mean? Like cholesterol was gave you the heart attacks, and then in the future it's the thing that actually cures you. And it's like, that's how doing a show like this evolves. Like the thing you swore wasn't true. In 10 years, Luke, maybe I do love the little people.
You do already. You're just in denial.
And that's what keeps everybody going. That'll be the same thing with you. Is you're just looking for the next answer, and you don't ever know. Maybe the next story or the next email you get or the next person that messages you, maybe that's going to be that breaking moment. That might be the one thing that leads to the thread that helps you figure something out. But you don't know if you quit. So that's why you just keep grinding.
Right. That's why people treasure hunt forever, right? You're still looking for that mother lode.
That's why they play golf.
Keep on looking.
That's why they play golf. They're just, you're playing golf. You just, okay, you've played it, but no, they can't stop. And that's the way this is with this podcast.
Yeah. You can't stop because you get one good shot in that round, and there's the hope, right there. All he needs two the next time. Exactly.
Like a drug dealer. Just here, this one's for free. Just try that.
It's sick. Yes. It's a sick obsession, man. I started playing golf during this whole 2020 year because nothing else to do. I started playing more. I played before. And you just get out there enough that you're like, dude, I'm starting to play together. Starting. Well, I play one more. Want to see him, right? And your wife's like, you're not playing golf anymore.
Hey,
like,
guys, I'm in with you if you put disc in front of that.
Hey, we play disc golf.
We play disc golf, too.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
I know
2017.
I see. I started playing disc golf back when I was 19
College.
in Santa Cruz, California, where it was invented.
Yes,
it was like the original place of disc golf, like the grandfather, Steady Ed.
I listen to the hipster over here. I like disc golf before anybody else did.
He's drinking craft beer and talking about disc golf.
Man, I drank from the source, guys. You the Santa Cruz,
Dave California. Go way back.
But you know what killed it? That all the nerds, all the the guys would just make fun of you when you're like trying to figure it out. It's like it was just this nerd culture that came with it. I'm like, and that's what you guys are awesome because you guys have been doing this for so long. You don't seem jaded, and you're not too cool to like bring anyone else on or go on someone else's show or I don't know. You guys just
no, man. I mean, there are shows out there that feel very competitive with other shows, and we've just never been that way. I mean, there is room for everybody. Let's all we work together with so many shows, and I'm sure now we're going to be working with you. I mean, I'll hear a friend of ours has a show, interview somebody, and I'll reach out. Hey, can you give me their contact information? No problem, dude. Sends it over, and then they're on our show, or vice versa. It's a whole community. It doesn't do any good.
Right, and it's a little intimidating with that power mustache, but like we got past that.
Oakley dokley.
Yeah. Thank you. How you diddly doing out there?
Hey, Ron Swanson. Hey,
you guys are great. You guys got your 10,000 hours in at like 12.
That to go back to that story we were telling you before. That's what got it. The reason that I became friends with him is he's the only other person I knew that had a bow and arrow in 6th grade like I did. Because we both shot archery our whole lives, but I never knew anybody else until I bumped into him in 6th grade. And then that's where it started. You like bows? I like bows. You like Bigfoot? I like Bigfoot. And then 2 6th grade knuckleheads went crazy, and here we are.
Here you are. Yeah, now you're neighbors. You can never get away from each other.
He's my son's godfather, and it's just madness. The whole thing's madness.
But that's the thing, podcasting chemistry takes a long time. It takes a while to kind of get your vibe going back and forth. And the 10,000 Hours is that book by, I can't remember, who was that? Justin Bieber?
Bieber.
Justin Bieber wrote that book. What's his face? Man, it's going to drive me nuts.
Oh, Malcolm Gladwell?
Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote that book. Yeah, so 10,000 Hours, a lot of people don't realize, like, there it is. See,
I'm like, I've listened to that. I was like, oh, I remember that guy's name.
But you guys got it at a young age. You guys have been hanging out since you were talking to each other, going back and forth, and that's cool because you build that chemistry. You do the show together,
and we still talk every day, literally 2 hours a day, every day. We talk. It's about the show. It's about, did you read this? Did you see that? What do you think about that? Or you can just call you up to just do dumb things.
Send each other stupid memes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like that.
I try to make him laugh. So if I can make him laugh, because they're making each other laugh our whole life. So like if I can come up with something ridiculous and get a good laugh out of it, I'm like, I'll see something. And if you talk about that chemistry, is I can be going through doing a news story a week and I can go like, I know right now I'm fixing to do something and he's going to take it and run like that. So I'll steer it that way and then soft toss one. And I'm like, here we go. And then it just goes.
I mean, and you guys just said you've been friends for a long time too. So that's probably why it works so well. The chemistry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Luke and I, we knew a lot of people who knew each other. So Luke's friends are my friends. And then we kind of met through friends. So
we met in Chico like years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, years and years ago. You're playing piano, thinking you're this cool
I
band guy.
Hey, I never played piano, so I think you got someone else in mind.
Maybe no, I think it was you. You were trying to get on there, and you
I don't play
ivories.
piano. I don't tickle the ivories.
Playing
I'm too big to
Coldplay,
tickle.
looking all solemn with his disc golf bag on.
Right, 100%. Just talking about, man. I just came from the source.
Yeah, Luke and I should have been friends. We knew the same people.
Still.
We're both from Northern California. We should have been friends a long time ago. We just found each other in old age.
Well, you found each other.
He doesn't like me that much yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah, right. I have to hope for like disease or sickness or an accident, something like that. That's the only thing to get rid of this one.
I think Nate's gonna walk into a portal at the Giant Mound tomorrow. So
with the little
I'll
people.
be doing solo podcast, guys. I'll have you guys back.
Yeah,
It'll just be
let's
me.
do it.
And Nate'll be.
Yeah.
Man, I love it. You guys are great. I want to keep talking forever. I know we could talk forever.
Oh yeah.
Now, when it comes to Sasquatch, you have to remember 1 is a Sasquatch, 2 or more is Sasquatch, and the little ones are Sasquirts. That's what
We're
told
learning.
by an elder.
We're learning. Sasquirts.
That's it.
Sasquirts.
Size them up.
Yeah, you got to start classifying them, right? And
That's right.
We got to start somewhere, guys.
You got to separate them out so you know. Yeah.
That's right.
I learned
Exactly.
something new
2 or more.
tonight.
Well, guys, thanks for having us, or thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
great.
Hey, look, we can do it again sometime.
Yeah. Whenever.
Oh yeah.
Do you wanna plug the show real quick? Why for our listeners that maybe haven't? I don't know how they wouldn't have listened to you guys yet, but if they did, yeah.
Sure. If you liked what we've been talking about here and want to hear more, you can always check out our show, Expanded Perspectives. You can find us on all forms of wherever podcasts are played. You can check out our YouTube channel. You can email the show. You can go to our website, expandedperspectives.com. I mean, just do a Google search. You'll find it. Really easy.
All social media. Just Expanded Perspectives. You'll find us.
They have their own disc golf bag.
I'm so lazy. I got a cart.
I like that. I'm gonna get one of those robot carts that follows you around.
If I could get that, I definitely would. Because I always think like I want to be like Rodney Dangerfield on Caddyshack. Remember, he's got that thing. He's got the
like a
radio
beer
in it. It's
keg
got
in
a
it.
beer tap. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think I broke my arm.
It's the only way to do it.
I love it. It's so funny to like listen to a podcast for years and you kind of get to know like the vibe, and then you just kind of think, man, maybe one of these days, maybe we'll do a show together. When I get my podcast rolling, these guys sound really cool.
Yep.
And it happens. You know what I mean? And you guys are great. Kyle, Cam, thank you so much for.
We had a blast. Thanks for
Absolutely.
letting us
Thanks,
come on
guys.
and chat.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. And we'll do it again sometime. Let us know.
Yeah,
And if the guy ever wants to share his little people story, man, we've had everybody talk about it. And
Dude,
I
I have tried.
He
and
won't.
tried.
Oh, he hasn't talked about it on your
guy.
show yet.
No, he won't. I don't think he ever will. Yeah. That's Doc's not even his real name. He won't even. Yeah. Like he's not about it.
Hey guys, remember when Nate said he's really not into the little people, but now he's mentioned it like 3 times.
You're right,
at
Luke.
the end of this show.
You're on
Solid
point.
point.
I'm just saying. I'm
Solid
saying. Hey, we're all about we're about empirical evidence here, and we're finding the truth. With the truth is just coming out of me.
I'm keeping tabs
Yeah.
here, and he's
Luke's
more
right.
little person.
Luke's right. You have been mentioning it
Nate.
quite a bit.
I'm gonna be. Hey guys, if there's
think
one more
about
thing, if the guy at the little people guy wants to come on,
You always
the
make
show,
fun of the girl you really like, I guess, right?
Here we go.
Yeah, Nate, I
Okay.
love you, Nate.
I'm
Love
a
you,
sucker.
Nate.
You've been putting it in my mind, and now I think I love the little people. I can't.
help it.
I
You can't
can't.
help yourself.
Well, you guys got to let us know anything weird about the little people because apparently I love it,
Okay.
and your friendship is inspiring. Keep at it, guys. I hope you're
thanks,
podcasting
guys.
when you're 87.
We're gonna try. If he lasts that long,
We're going to try.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't, we'll just get a hologram, and
Dude,
just
for
get,
real.
by then,
Kanye West did.
the Tupac hologram.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, I'll get
Tupac
Tupac in
hologram.
here.
You just have,
It'll just all be head. Look at the size of this
you
thing.
know,
It'll just be one giant head floating. I don't even have a neck.
right? It's all beard. It's all beard.
Hey, thanks so much for having us on, man.
Yeah,
It's a
it was fun.
blast.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'll make some fun promo and do silly things like we do.
Yeah, we're down.
80s stuff.
80s was a good time.
Oh yeah.
Good
It
music.
was
Great music.
good hair, really good hair.
Wished I had hair.
Parachute pants. Whatever happened to parachute pants?
That's a solid question.
You can't even find any at a thrift
gonna come-
store.
it's-
Like,
They're coming back.
They're coming back, man. Just wait.
Dude,
Mullet's
if I
already
could grow
back.
my hair out, I would have a dirty mullet.
They didn't leave in some places.
People are
in the
like,
country,
back?
but they're coming back in others.
People in Arkansas are like, what?
Man,
They're
I've
coming
been-
back.
they're like, man, I've been holding back. I'm holding this one just like the Firebird. It's coming. It
People in
never
Arkansas. I'm
left.
just making a joke. I have some family in Arkansas. I always tell them that's where the toothbrush come from. Anywhere else, it'd be called the toothbrush. They don't like that. It's just jokes, people. Come on. Just jokes.
Oh man, hey, this guy's got jokes. Absolutely.
We got years to learn that kind of humor. You guys got it naturally. I love it. All right, dudes.
All right.
All right, boys.
Yeah.
I got to eat some dinner here eventually.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us on. It was great. Yeah, let us know. We'll share it and put it all out and tell everybody about it and the whole thing when it pops out.
You're awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All right, y'all take care. It was fun.
It was a pleasure.
Have a good one.
See y'all.
It was a pleasure.
All right.
I don't even know how to turn this thing off. I'm terrible at this.
That's how I'm going to end the show.
I don't even know how to turn that thing back on. I really don't. Let's see.
Go
Let me see if I
eat
can.
your dinner.
I have no idea. Why does this work this way? I don't know.
You might see another werewolf.
Dude, this thing is definitely
outside of your window
I
tonight.
definitely do not know what I'm doing with all this fancy stuff. I am clicking buttons. Nothing's happening. God, it is amazing how I could even survive.
That wasn't a werewolf out your window. It was me, Ned Flanders.
That's right. Staring in. Look deep into my eyes. You're not seeing. These are not the droids you're looking for.
Maybe
Please.
the big X in the top right?
But I'm trying to just turn the thing back on and it's. Boy, this is some real bullshit.